Okay, here are comments on your past paper Friday. The first question was mostly fine. Some of you didn't read this bit in part B, that 105 pupils study chemistry. You're not sharing the 105 out. But again, mostly fine. Question 2, you need to remind yourself how to find the area of a trapezium. It just meant the area of this front bit. Okay, some of you want to do the total surface area. Do look at the formula sheet if you're not sure. See what clues you can get from that. And you also had to remember how to find the volume of a prism. Not tricky. Question 3 was mostly done fine. Some of you divided by 9 instead of 18 here, but it should have been a half. Question 4 again was fine. However, some of you said that 0 times 2 was 2. It's not, it's 0. But also remember, you're dividing by the total number of matches, not by 5 or 6 or how many boxes there are. There are 30 matches, so you're dividing by 30. This one, I know you didn't have tracing paper, but you should have defined it as a rotation and then give the things that you need to say for a rotation, how far you're going around, which direction, and the centre of rotation. Question 6 was done really well. The only thing I would pick you all up on is when you have -3 times -7, it must be plus 21. Question 4, it's not enough to leave it there. You must actually do that and put v to the 6. Question 7, it's clear that it is the circle, area of the circle, subtract the area of the square. You can all do that. I don't need to help you with that one. Product of prime factors, do a factor tree and write it as a product. So that means a multiplication sum. Right, on to the set question. Lots of good things. Some of you forgot what these signs mean. This is intersection, the overlap. This is union, both things together. Also, 1 is not a prime number, but 2 is a prime number. So just make sure you're okay with this. Number 10, you could work out that 2.6 times 4 was all the 4 numbers added together. So 10.4, and you're told one of the numbers is 5. So it's 5 plus the other 3 added together. So you needed to work out then that the other 3 added together were 5.4, and so the mean was 1.8. Have a think about that one if you didn't quite get it. Standard form, mostly done fine. Some of you didn't put this in standard form. You had to leave it or answer in standard form. And the last part was fine. This question was a bit tricky. A lot of you were very clever and realised that because it's an equilateral triangle, you have 60 in each corner. But the question said, in terms of x. So you're not looking for a number answer, you're getting an expression in terms of x. This line didn't cut this angle in half. You couldn't just say that was 30, but what you could say, if it was 60 minus x, that's 60 minus x, because this is an isosceles triangle, that's 60 minus x. So all 3 angles must add up to 180. You know that's 60, so you can get an expression for this. I called that y until I knew what it was, and then I made myself an equation and solved it for y. You can do that too. Now this question, number 13, there was a slight trick to this. You're meant to factorise fully, and when you factorise, you look for common factors. And if you were pretty smart, you could spot that there was an x minus 5 there, and there's an x minus 5 there. So you can take that out as a common factor. Out of this term, you've then got 4 lots of x minus 5, because there's a squared there, obviously. So there's 1 there and 1 there. And this has got, if you take x minus 5 out, you've got a 3. And then you can simplify that, and then that's the answer. If you didn't spot that, it doesn't matter. You can still expand it. But remember, x minus 5 all squared means x minus 5 times itself. Don't just square and get x squared plus 25. That's not right. Okay, the probability tree. Most people got this. That's fine. You don't have to bother going on any further once he's passed it. So you only have a branch to come out here, and you're told it's 0.8 for passing, 0.2 for failing. Fine. The probability that Peter needs exactly 2 attempts, that must mean he failed first time and passed second time. So 0.3 times by 0.8. When you want something and something else happening in probability, you multiply. So 0.24. The last part was slightly trickier. You had to find out the probability he passed on the 3rd attempt and the probability he passed on the 4th attempt. And we don't mind whether he passed on the 3rd or, look, there's the or in the question, or the 4th. Or in maths means add. So you find out the probability of passing on the 3rd time, so fail, fail, pass, and the probability of him passing on the 4th time, fail, 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 pass. You get your answers and then you add them up. Have a think about that. But and means multiply, or means add. The histogram one was slightly tricky. You had to realise that it was a histogram. So in histograms, it's the area which shows frequency, not the height. You're told that this first box, between 0 and 2 minutes, there are 28 customers. So the area of that must be 28. We've got 2 as the base, so we must have 14 as the height. And from that, you can work out that every 5 squares, you go up 4 units on the frequency density. That was slightly tricky because it was odd having 2.5 squares there. And then you needed to find the area from 5 upwards. So all of that, and that. And once you've got the scale going up this axis, that's not too tricky. Have a go. Right, last few questions. I gave you a massive hint on this. The interior plus the exterior adds up to 180. If we call the exterior x, the interior must be 7 times that, because that's what it tells us in the question. So we've got 8x altogether being 180. Then you can find out what one exterior angle is. And remember, all the exterior angles add up to 360. So to find out how many sides, I divide by 22.5, I get 16. So there are 16 sides to that shape. This one, again, I made you a massive, massive hint. Do you remember when we're doing recurring decimals to fractions? You need to label your recurring decimal. I would always write it out like this. And it obviously goes on forever, so you just need the first few bits. Times it by 10, times it by 100, times it by 1,000, whatever you need to do until you've got 2 numbers with the same tail after the decimal point. Okay, then you can subtract, and that kills off the tail, it just goes. So here, if I do 1000n, subtract 10n, I'll get 990. Some of you are fixated with 999. 990n being just 15. And so I can divide both sides by 990, cancel, and I get a nice fraction. The bounds one, you had to, some of you tried this, which was very good. Right, I would do a table, upper bound and lower bound for each of my 1300 and my 160. And then think, how do I work out the thickness of the paper? Well, it's the height of all the paper divided by the number of pages. And then I had to think, how do I get the biggest possible answer to that sum? I want the biggest possible answer on the top and the smallest possible answer on the bottom. So I use those 2 numbers and I should get 0.132 millimetres. And the last question, it's a simultaneous equation, but with a linear, so no x squared in that one, and a quadratic expression. There's my squareds, that makes it a quadratic. If you've got one of each type, you can only do it by substitution. So I rearranged that first linear expression, and you can do this more slowly, but it comes out as y equals 2x plus 7. Then into this expression, wherever I see the y, I put 2x plus 7. So my x squared plus, instead of y squared, I've got 2x minus 7 all squared equals 34. And then I expand, simplify, solve the quadratic, and then must go back and find the values of y as well. Okay, hopefully that will give you a good head start. Do ask me in the next lesson if you have any problems. Bye!